winter food drive.
My name is Viviana Gutierrez. I am in the 5th grade. I am the ASB 5th grade photographer. I'm here today with Gladys
Fredrickson. I'm in the 5th grade. I'm the ASB treasurer. I'm here today with Jordan Fredrickson, Kaylee Fredrickson, and my sisters Georgia Fredrickson and Perry Fredrickson.
My name is Anthony Martinez. I'm in the 4th grade. I am the ASB photographer, and I'm here with my mom, Amy Martinez.
Please stand. Pledge of Allegiance.
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
If there are any family members with these wonderful students, could you please stand up so that we can recognize you? Thank you very much. Okay, continuing on, we will go with a roll call. And Jenny, could you please do that? Excused.
Present. Present.
Present.
Present.
Present. Present.
Mr. Garrett, is Board President Brown online?
I am online. Vice President Simmons, thank you for the clarification.
Thank you. Okay, we'll move to the next agenda item, which is approval of the minutes. Do we have a motion to approve the minutes from February 11th, 2025?
I move that we approve the minutes.
We have a motion to approve the minutes. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a second. All in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed? Okay, motion passes. Let's see here. Moving to our next item on the agenda is agenda review, and Michelle Whitney will provide that.
Thank you, Board Vice President Simmons. We do have an addition to the agenda under consent agenda letter I, Orion High School Project Construction Change Order Number 6, submitted by Raul Satal, is a change or an addition to the agenda indicated in red. I also want to call the board members' attention to the agenda. We will be requesting an executive session under 4231.10.1G for performance of a public school employee.
Thank you, Michelle. Okay, we will move to agenda item 7, which is special recognition, and Ms. Anna Tensmeyer will present tonight's recognition of the school counselors.
Okay, good evening, Vice President Simmons, Superintendent Whitney, and members of the board. Is the mic on? Can you hear it? Yes. Okay. Each February, Pasco School District proudly celebrates National School Counseling Week, recognizing the incredible dedication of our school counselors and the profound impact they have on our students. Our counselors collaborate closely with students, families, and staff, and the community, ensuring that every student has the tools and encouragement they need to reach their full potential. They help students explore their strengths, overcome obstacles, and develop the skills necessary for lifelong success. They also provide vital support to parents, guiding them through the challenges of raising children in today's world. Additionally, our counselors work hand in hand with teachers and staff to create an environment where students can set healthy, realistic, and ambitious goals for themselves. Their dedication shapes not only individual student success, but also the overall culture of our schools. I invite all of our counselors to come forward who are with us tonight so we can show our appreciation with a small token of gratitude and capture this moment with a picture. So come on up if you're one of our counselors. And Jake Stickle is going to give you a gift. And if you want to put them on the corner, Jake, so we can get a picture. And then Jake, you want to get a picture with them? On behalf of the Pasco School District, we extend our heartfelt thanks to each one of you. Your passion, care, and commitment makes a lasting difference in the lives of our students every single day. While we celebrate you during National School Counseling Week, please know that your impact is recognized and appreciated all year long. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Tensmeyer. We will move to our 8th portion of the agenda, which is audience comments. And we just want to say that the board values your comments, and we invite any audience members that wish to address the board at this time to the podium. We just have a couple things we want to address. Please state your name and affiliation with the district, and note that your comments need to be kept to 2 minutes. And if more time is needed, please contact or email the board members or reach out to the superintendent's office. Are there any audience comments in the room? Are there any comments online? No? Okay. Moving on. Item number 9, the consent agenda. And we will go through them. Okay, so our consent agenda for tonight is we got warrant B warrants, overnight travel, student travel to Chihuahua High School FCCLA students to State Officer and Leadership Conference in Spokane, Washington. Out-of-state overnight student travel for Pasco High School DECA students to compete in business marketing competition in academies in Orlando, Florida. Overnight student travel for Pasco High School Wind Ensemble to college campus visits in Seattle, Washington. Overnight student travel for Pasco High School Robotics Club to Skills USA Leadership and Skills Competition in Seattle, Washington. Overnight student travel for Chihuahua High School Chess Club students to Stanwood, Washington. Overnight student travel for Pasco High School Key Club to attend Pacific Northwest Key Club District Convention in Seattle, Washington. And the addition, Orion High School Project Construction Change Order number 6. So, if I could ask for a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Board Vice President Simmons, I move that we pass the consent agenda as presented.
We have a motion on the table,
Second it.
and we have a second. The consent agenda has been approved and seconded. Ms. Richardson, could you please conduct a roll call?
Yes.
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 Are we going to, or are we going to excuse?
Well, she can still.
She can.
I apologize. Yes, I approve.
Thank you. Okay, moving on. So the consent agenda is approved. Moving on to action item 10. There are no action items this evening. Moving on to item 11, extended studies discussion. There is no extended study discussion this evening, and so we'll move to item number 12, which is reports. Safety and security report, and crisis planning and crisis response. And that is being done by Michelle Whitney, so we'll turn the time over to you.
Thank you, Board President, or Board Vice President Steve Simmons, members of the board. Thank you for allowing me to be in front of you tonight to continue a series of school safety presentations that were requested by the board. I just want to mention, this is slightly awkward as though I feel like I can't see over it. So if you can't see me, I apologize. I needed like a booster to stand up so I can see over the monitor. So the purpose of tonight's presentation, again, it's a second in a series of a multi-part presentation about the security measures that are in place in Pasco School District, both for our schools and facilities. Tonight will be focused on the district crisis planning and district crisis response. Future presentations will include facility security, student support systems, and risk management. I also just want to recognize that I'm doing part of the presentation tonight, and then Assistant Superintendent Mira Goebel will join me for the second part of our presentation. So I just want to thank her for her willingness to partner with me tonight. So I want to launch into our crisis management, which is really governed by RCW's an RCW in the laws, and that has requirements for public schools. So all schools in Washington are required to have comprehensive emergency operation plans and procedures in place. And the legislation notes that coordinated plan development is essential to ensure that we have an effective response to any emergency situation. And we're very lucky in the community of Pasco to have phenomenal support from our local first responders. The first responder logos that you see here are just a few of them that regularly communicate and collaborate with us. We have amazing public safety partners that are really an integral part of our emergency operations. They help with planning, they help with training, and they debrief both as individual agencies and then in collaboration with us after critical incidences, both locally, statewide, or nationally. And I just want to, again, amplify how incredibly proud I am to work shoulder to shoulder with who I consider to be the best in the business. The Pasco Police Department annually does run, hide, fight training for us, or active shooter training, active threat training. That is free of charge to us. They do that as a partner, and that is just one of a number of amazing services they provide for us. We also have supports at the state and federal level. FEMA and Homeland Security provide common protocols for schools and local public safety agencies to follow nationally. OSPI and the Washington State Risk Management Pool have a clearinghouse of training and materials to guide our safety requirements, and we're currently using materials from a foundation called I Love You Guys. They have amazing protocols and supports, and in particular their reunification protocols are really tremendous. So we've started using their materials as a foundation for our internal plans. Our emergency operation plans, or EOPs, the law requires that they address, they have a prevention component, that they have mitigation components, protection components, that there's response and recovery components for threats and hazards. It includes that we conduct and document monthly drills, and that we have a robust plan for student and family reunification, and that we update our plans annually and review them. The law also requires that we provide training on our operating plans and emergency procedures, and that each of us as district administrators have an incident command system, or ICS, certification for principals and district administrators. So on an interval, we all go through the training, FEMA's training, so that, again, we have that training and certification. That incident command structure allows districts to collaborate with our local first responders in a way where we're using consistent messaging. So internal to our district, we use the exact same incident command structure that the police department or fire department would set up when they're responding to a critical incident. So they're working their incident command structure, we're working our internal incident command structure, and then we have a very specific plan for how we liaise between the two. And that common structure and common language about whose role and line of authority is where lends for clarity and efficiency in the face of responding to critical incidents. So this is an example for us of the roles that are identified in our plan. For each of the roles that you see in this slide, there are redundancies built in. Because what we know is, and almost always happens, is none of us are exactly where we would normally be when a critical incident occurs. For example, I very, very definitively remember being in front of a room full of community members delivering a speech in honor of a North Star or a Crystal Apple Award winner at the ESD when we had a critical incident happen at Pasco High School where there was a report of a potential threat to that school. And I remember standing there and my phone is just exploding in my pocket. And when I finally got somewhere where I could look, incident command was being spun up here at the district level, and literally none of the people that were on the plan were playing their normal roles, but everyone knew what their role should be. So it's really a perfect example of how life happens. Like, I'm not normally sitting in my office waiting for a critical incident to occur, and so it is a real comfort to myself as a superintendent, and should be for you as a board and the community to know that each of us as individuals know what our roles are, but also could step in and play a role for someone who was missing or not in the building. This slide represents our emergency operation plans. These are the plans that are in place at our district buildings, and the graphic shows a list of the topics that are included. These plans were standardized across our district in collaboration with staff, using the I Love You Guys Foundation's materials as really kind of the foundation for that. So anyone could pick up these emergency operation plans at any school, and they would look identical in format. And there are places where the response and language that is used is very, very standardized. And then there's places where each building has identified the uniqueness of the response based on their facility or their student needs, et cetera. And that was a very intentionally planned effort to, again, build in that standardization, because where standard means that we can respond faster, we can respond more consistently, and we can respond with confidence. So with that, I will turn the crisis response component over to Mira.
I too can't see over there. We need a little step stool. So the part that Superintendent Whitney shared is preventative. We want to be ready, and all the things are in place just in case. Ideally, that we never have to use or activate any of that, but that's not the case. So that's the preventive part. And so the part that I want to talk about is what happens if a situation happens afterwards. So the incident command structure really enables the trained district staff to respond effectively to crisis by providing critical services and resources. Really, the structure facilitates collaboration, as Superintendent Whitney said, with local agencies by offering district personnel and facilities and equipment during emergencies. So examples of support include sometimes we actually deploy our counselors in another district, neighboring district, and vice versa. Because there's the consistency, uniformity of the incident command model, that's really easy to do, and we lend our hand. When something happens in neighboring district, we'll give a call and it's like, what do you need? And we're ready to support them. One of the, our probably really one of the critical flight, the post-event is what we call a flight team. So Pasco School District has 4 dedicated flight teams, consisting of really trained counselors and nurses and administrators to provide critical post-trauma care to students and staff during times of crisis, a tragedy, or other traumatic events. I recently heard that there's a big T trauma, that's the event, but there's a little T trauma. The trauma is not the event, but it's the injury that it occurs after, that sometimes it doesn't show for days as emotional. It could be a lot of things. So I think trained staff being aware of that, just because the event was over doesn't mean the trauma doesn't continue. So I think it's really important that we actually offer that post-event support to our students. So these teams are specifically trained to offer emotional and psychological support, helping individuals process grief, anxiety, or distress, in aftermath of a difficult situation. They are called flight team because members are granted flexibility to literally leave their regular assignments at a moment's notice to respond swiftly, like fly, wherever they are needed. A designated flight team coordinator oversees the activation. Reason that we have 4 is, one, they're on rotation, but sometimes you might have to deploy 2 flight teams if there's multiple buildings that are impacted. A designated flight team, so the activation or organization and deployment of these teams, ensuring that appropriate resources and additional support services are available to effectively address the needs of the school community. Through the structure, the response, the flight teams play really a vital role in fostering the stability and resilience and recovery for any that was impacted by the trauma. Sometimes it's not even seen right away. And sometimes flight team, depending on the event, it's not just one, sometimes they'll be there a couple of days and we kind of assess the situation. And flight team might return, but then provide additional support. So we're very intuitive about the needs of any post-trauma support that the schools need and the students need. Coming soon, as Michelle mentioned, that we are really we're going to actually coordinate the reunification drill in collaboration with PPD. That is something that we plan to do this spring. The other thing that the district's really working on is really strengthening the crisis preparedness by expanding of the crisis response team beyond the situations of staff and student loss. Sometimes it's a staff members lost their child and there's grief within the building. Then maybe it's not an entire flight team that needs to be deployed, but how do we support them in a way that is also systematic? So that is something that we're working on. So that support could be student loss, the wide range of emergencies, ensuring more comprehensive, really proactive support system. Looking ahead to 25-26 school year, we're continuing to really revise that emergency operation plan. As Superintendent Whitney said, is to a page, like all the lockdowns in a page 8, no matter which school you open to. We've gotten that tight. Our goal is that anybody should be able to walk in and really utilize that plan. We're also streamlining some of the languages around it, the terminology across school district and agencies in the Tri-Cities, fostering clear and consistent communication during emergencies. Such as we have adopted this year the term secure and teach, rather than, we used to call it a lockout. There's a lockdown. We know what that is. Lockdown is there's a threat inside where kids have to hide within the building. We used to call it lockout, where the threat's on the outside. Sometimes we get a call, hey, there's a police activity in the neighborhood. So we secure the doors, nobody can come in, but business usual within the building. So that created some confusion, and we learned that there's an I love you, they use the term secure and teach, which is a lot clearer. You secure the building, but you continue to teach. So we're gonna continue to streamline terminology, just like that, so it is clear and concise, so there is no confusion when the situations arise. So more work to be done, but I think we've done some really good work this year. And principals have been a huge part of this because they're the ones who have to execute at the building level, and they give inputs like that didn't work. There's some fuzziness about that, so we're really leaning on them to provide feedback on any procedures that we need to refine.
I just wanted to briefly pull on a thread from a couple of the things that Mira said. So the expansion of the crisis response teams or the flight teams, we pretty narrowly use flight team response for loss of life of a student or staff member. But there are all kinds of traumas that we experience. For example, the event at Pasco High this early February was a collective community trauma, and we actually had the request from some local community leadership organizations to think about how we might use the concept of a flight team to more broadly be prepared to respond to traumas like that. So we're taking that feedback and looking at coordinating to implement that. I also, the request to standardize terminology across school districts and agencies across the Tri-Cities came from the debrief of the tragedy that happened in West Richland with the shooting of the paraprofessional. During that critical response, there was an awareness that not all entities were using the same language around some of those drills like lockout, lockdown, et cetera. So those are just two examples of where Pasco School District is a learner, and we listen to the broader community to adjust our protocols and practices, not just internal to what we think we need, but what the broader community needs from us. So I just wanted to highlight those two examples of district's responsiveness to requests from outside organizations and community agencies. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions, and I know Mira would help me do that too.
Thank you, Superintendent Whitney and Ms. Goebold. Is there any questions on this presentation?
I'm still learning about this, but it's one of the concerns I have is if we end up with a shooter in one of our schools, that we have somebody close, preferably within that school, that can neutralize the situation. Where are we in that kind of how many schools have somebody that could do that?
So we have school resource officers at our secondary schools. At our elementaries, we prioritize what's called like hardening the outside. So what we've made decisions about the interventions or the security measures that are in place at each of our schools in collaboration with our police department and first responders. So their recommendation at the elementary level is to really focusing on the outside of the building remaining locked. There has never been an incident of anyone being harmed behind a locked door. So our very best security measure is to keep all of our doors locked all of the time. And so when you walk up to an elementary, all of our buildings, they have a door that will open into a vestibule where you have to be buzzed in, you have to show ID as a parent, et cetera. All of our people who man those security vestibules have been trained by the Pasco Police Department to do that work. So that really is our focus at the elementary level. At the middle and high school level, where there is more student movement, where it is a little bit harder to ensure that the exterior doors are locked, that's where we've prioritized our school resource officers. And then in addition to that, we have done active threat training for all employees around the concept of run, hide, fight. So and that has been done by recommendation from the Pasco Police, and the Pasco Police Department has delivered that training. So again, and that will be part of our next presentation, and a deeper explanation of that, and we can even have the Pasco Police Department come and talk about that.
But the security officers are armed then?
Pasco police officers are armed as a standard when they're in uniform.
But the security officers are not?
Our employees that are security officers are not armed. Our insurance company would not allow that.
Do they have any kind of, like a taser or any kind of weapon?
Our employees do not.
I was just wanting a little bit more clarification on what a reunification drill is.
Yeah, no, it's a great question. So anytime there's an event where, let's take, anytime there's an event where we have to move our students from a school to another school, or parents would need to come pick up their students, we have to have a protocol and a process for connecting the right adult to the right student. So that process is a reunification protocol. All of our buildings have a standard protocol and practice that they would use. For example, if there was an incident at their school where parents had to come pick up their kids early, they have a protocol for that. They also have a protocol where they would pick up all the stuff they need to do that, and they would move to an alternative location. For example, if an issue happened at Livingston, we may have to relocate them to Chiawana. They would pick up everything they need to reunify parents, and they would then set up a reunification at Chiawana High School, and parents would be directed to go pick up their students at Chiawana High School. The model that we're working on is a concept where a completely different group of people that's not associated with the schools are trained as the kind of the reunification team, and you would use like the HAPO Center, for example, and that would be the reunification area. So actually Aubrey Pitzer went to the west side and actually observed a drill like that, and brought back recommendations. We've met with the Pasco Police Department about that. We're working through protocols, and then that's the drill that we would drill this summer. So we're really excited about. I think that's for me it was like that when I was building principal and as a superintendent. Like that's the part of our process that always kind of keeps me awake at night. Is, you know, I know we can account for our kids. I know we can lock a building down. I know we can evacuate, and we can account and know where our kids are. I think about from a parent's perspective, my trust and the way I feel about the district's response will be directly connected at how quickly they can get me reunified with my kid. So we want to make sure that we're at the top of our game in that reunification effort.
I love that. Just because I've heard of, just the stories that you read after a shooting, and these parents don't know for 6 or 8 hours their child is still okay. And so I love that we are working on, I hope we never, ever, ever have to test it. But I think it's critical that those parents are reunified with their kids as soon as humanly possible.
Same. Yeah. No, it's a part of the emergency preparedness that we take very seriously, and we're very grateful for the different entities who've been willing to partner with school districts. So again, that we have the best practices, and we can learn from experts in how to do that the best way for our community.
Do we review this safety plan? We do. You
Annually.
probably already mentioned that.
Yeah, annually. One, it's required by law that it's reviewed annually, but then we also, like I said, we debrief after every critical incident, both locally or nationwide. Our Pasco PD reviews their protocols. They'll call us and talk about, here's the places that you need to think about. Matter of fact, another part of the recommendation, like I described from the West Richland tragedy, was the standardization of terminology, but also reunification was a big recommendation from Pasco Police after that tragedy in West Richland, is that the district look really heavily at their reunification protocols. So, the Pasco Police Department does a phenomenal job in debriefing incidents and being very, very good partners in sharing with us the places where they're changing their protocols and then making recommendations for us. Another great example of that is when we suffered our tragedy around the murder of our bus driver. They got with us right away, helped us rebuild a protocol about keeping our drivers safe by not opening the door, etc. The security vestibule training, we had security vestibules, but people were letting us know that they didn't feel comfortable. Like, yeah, we know we have the vestibule, but we don't really know what to do with it. And so Pasco Police, again, partnered with us in developing a training. So we, as a standard annually, as required by law, review the protocols and the plans and make adjustments. But then as needed, based on the events of the world, we then partner with our first responders and make those modifications as needed.
Is there do they hold any, what would you call it, like a training event, like a mock incident, and then
Yep, we've done that a lot with the Pasco Police Department, and then like Franklin County Emergency Management. Like we'll go over to the Franklin County Emergency Management building and we'll do a tabletop training. We've done those very formally. We've done them informally. We have not done one of those in a while, and that is now the reunification drill that I was talking about this summer will be one of those tabletops that's more multi-agency. We have done, and we probably need to do this again as a district. We've done where we relocate. We'd take like Livingston, for example, and practice relocating them to like Chiawana, for example. So matter of fact, we did a tabletop here not too long ago after I want to say a little emergency at one of our schools. We brought all the principals in and did a tabletop and kind of walked through and debriefed that. So we do it both informally, internal to the organization, but then very formally in partnership with outside agencies.
are there any further comments from the board? Okay, thank you, Superintendent Whitney.
My pleasure.
So we will move on to our next report. We actually have two reports. Our second one is a first reading of Board Policy 1115, student representatives to the board directors, and then also a revision to Board Policy 1630, evaluation of the superintendent, both being done by Superintendent Whitney, as it says here. So we'll turn the time over to you.
Thank you.
Again.
So I'm going to ask for your grace because I typically don't do policy presentations. Sarah does these for me, but I think I have the right one up. So I'm going to ask you for your grace. So I just wanted to give a bit of a context for the policy changes that you're going to see around the student board representatives. So just by way of reminder, this board had asked the student board representatives last year to study a number of issues on your behalf and then bring back recommendation. So that happened, and the areas that you wanted them to study were, what do we do with our student board representative program when we bring on a new high school? You wanted them to look at the concept of, and then wanted them to look at the concept of student advisory voting. So the recommendations were brought back to you as a board that when the new high schools came on board, that we would change the number of student board representatives from up to 3 to up to 4. So this policy, 1115, has made that change. So you'll see the change in the language there, up to 4. And then this is just a revision of the date. So that really is the only change to this particular policy, and it's in alignment with the direction that you asked the student reps to get from the Superintendent Student Action Council.
Superintendent Whitney, could you remind us why we're keeping in the language of the very final paragraph? It says the student representatives may be selected from any high school in the district. However, the students must represent at least 2 high schools. So that could leave open the possibility that all 4 could come, like 2 could come from one high school and 2 can come from another high school of the 3 comprehensive, for example. Can you remind us why we're sticking with that, not saying, for example, at least 3 high schools or 4?
The language has not been a barrier for us. There's been a common understanding that the intention of the interview process and the student board representative program is to have broad representation and to the extent possible from each of the high schools. Our practice has been that we have 1 each from the comprehensive high schools, and then the other position kind of rotates between Delta High School and the smaller high schools. So the language hasn't been a barrier to us doing that and wouldn't change that focus.
I'm sorry, Superintendent Whitney. I'm sorry, can you repeat the last sentence? I missed it. The last sentence you just said.
I can't. I'm sorry. I don't know. I'm sorry. I don't know what I said. I apologize. I'm good once, John. You got
It's okay. I totally missed it. My only concern is, like, based on applicant pools and whatnot, that we end up in a situation in which one of the comprehensive, for example, don't have a student rep on the board.
I think John has a good point, though. I think we might have just missed that as we were making the recommendation. I have a different one pulled up on my computer, so I'm not sure we have the same one, but because it says up to 4 high school rather than 3 high schools must be represented, it almost follows that the student representatives may be selected from any high school. However, the students must represent at least 2 high schools. I mean, it might be nice to put at least 3 high schools out of the 4. So
I serve at the pleasure of the board. It's really up to you. I just would caution you in backing yourself into a corner that you would end up with not being able to fill a spot because you didn't have enough applicants.
yeah, the only thing is we'll have 3 comprehensive high schools at that point, and we'll have 3 other high schools, so.
I truly have no preference, so if you want a
I
language
wouldn't
change there,
mind
just
having that
recommend it.
change, but that's 2 of us now. Is there a third one that wants to make that change?
I was actually in the opposite of that. I was actually even wondering if we even need to have that in there. I mean, if we're already choosing, I mean, I guess the precedent's been set that we choose 1 from each high school, but like John's saying, if we can't, I mean, then we're locking ourselves into.
Well, the language just says up to 4 student reps. So if the applicant pool is so terrible in terms of quantity,
Right.
we end up with only 2 that make the cut. Then, but the final paragraph, which has has the requirement to say at least 2 or at least 3 high schools. At least gives us the opportunity to, not guarantee, but more likely perhaps, ensure that all of our, as many of our high schools as possible are represented.
And we've never had a problem filling in the time, which it scarily is at least half of those groups of reps. In my time, we've never had a problem filling the positions from our
Comprehensive high schools.
comprehensive high schools.
I could just go either way, I guess. To me,
Yeah.
it's, we probably know what we're doing, so we probably don't need it in there, but if you guys really feel like you want to have it in there, I don't have a problem either way.
Is it possible to hear from Board President Brown? Is she
Just because,
Yes, I'm listening. I do think we run the risk of possibly painting ourselves into a corner if we were to add language that there needed to be a board rep from every comprehensive high school. We have yet to see. I don't doubt that there would be interested applicants from every comprehensive high school. And we definitely want to hear the student voice from every comprehensive high school, and and the other high schools as well. But I don't also want to paint ourselves into a corner where we can't elect 4 board reps because there's a lack of interest or a lack of applications. If that makes sense.
and if we only have board reps from 2 high schools, I wouldn't want 4 reps. Does that make sense? The whole purpose in 4 reps is that we are representing more high schools. So, I don't know. I still stand by I would love to see that with 3.
At least you get 2. I mean, at least you're representing half the high schools, and then we'd still get 4, so I mean, we'd still get 2 from,
Superintendent Whitney, if the applicant pool, for example, is, I mean, hypothetically, all the applicants come from 2 of our high schools, whether it's comprehensive or accelerate or innovative. The interviewing committee has the discretion to select any number between 1 and 4, so they could just choose 1
Correct.
and instead of 4.
Yeah. Yes, that's correct. I will tell you that the interview committees, since I've been superintendent, have been very focused on as many kids as possible having the experience, and also having broad representation from the high schools. And, to be honest, like up to this point, we haven't had an issue with administering the program under that kind of philosophy. So again, it truly is up to you as a board what you want to do with that language. But I'm confident that regardless of the language in that paragraph, that we'll be able to administer the program against your intent. And then remembering that you have a board member or 2 on the selection committee. So it's not district staff doing that work on your behalf. You're there. There's a representative from the board there. At least 1, if not 2.
I'm sensing a division among my colleagues, but I think I probably would side with Director Phillips on the last point, but it's not a make or break.
We could certainly administer the policy as written for a year. Once Sageview has seniors, if we see it has a problem and need to bring it back for revision, we see it's causing an issue, we can absolutely revise it at a later time. The board does not approve procedures. However, one of the requests that you had from our student board representatives was to entertain the concept of advisory voting. And while the recommendation around the up to 4 student board reps was very clearly a supported recommendation from the Superintendent Student Action Council, the concept of advisory voting was not. And you as a board, you really did dig deep around that. You heard lots of different perspectives around the concept of advisory voting, and you directed me as a superintendent to build in some language, whether it was in a policy or procedure, that called out your intention of using the Superintendent Student Action Council as your advisory mechanism. So instead of building it into the policy, because there is no policy around the superintendent student action council, because I direct that, it's not a board directed group. Instead, we built it into the policy or the procedure for policy 1115. So you'll see the change up to 4 high school student board representatives. The piece specifically about using the Superintendent Student Action Council as advisory to the board falls then under the responsibility of the student board rep. And your request to do this was really good for a number of reasons, including it triggered us to update the responsibilities of student board representatives, which up till that point didn't have a responsibility of participation in the Superintendent Student Action Council. So we added that as a requirement of the board, because it absolutely has been since I've been superintendent, and called out their responsibility to act as a liaison between the Superintendent Student Action Council and the board. And then more specifically, the responsibility of the superintendent then, it calls out in number 5 that my responsibility is to convene and facilitate the Student Action Council, to act as in an advisory capacity to you or to me and to the board. And then it also then adds responsibilities for you. It talks about your participation in selection of the student board reps. It talks about following the appropriate policies and laws around volunteers. And then this is where the advisory piece comes in around number 3, is making the request to the superintendent for advisory information from the Superintendent Student Action Council, and then engage student representatives in that board discussion. So that is the procedure adjustment in alignment to the direction that you gave district staff around the concept of wanting a more formal mechanism of student advisory. And I'm open to feedback.
Looks good to
Again,
me.
you do not formally approve policy, but certainly as superintendent, I would be open to your feedback.
Just real quick, in the Board of Directors portion here, well, I guess originally it did say will. What if there is no, it says will participate in the selection process. What if there is none available? What happens? Do they not?
We have always scheduled the interviews when at least one of you is available, because they are your board reps. They're not necessarily my board reps, that they are the representatives to the board. So we feel really strongly that at least one board member needs to participate in that process. So since I've been superintendent, we've not had a time when we didn't have at least one board member available for the interview process.
And much preferably 2.
Yeah.
It's just, they are our board reps. We need to be part of the selection process. And it is critical. There have been times when the whole group is going a direction and the board members have said, hey, wait a minute, this is the role of these board reps? And we need to make sure these board reps can fill this role. And then the whole group changes and says, oh, well, if that's the role, then let's go this direction. So it really is, there are board reps. So I really encourage us as a board to make sure that we have 2 people there so that we have that diversity of opinions from the board.
Speaking of that, Director Phillips, what are the student board reps' opinions on the language in the policy around having student board reps from each comprehensive high school?
I think it should be. It's very important that we have at least one board rep from each high school, if available. I think the only difference here is that because of the idea that we've been doing this for so long, and that we've had board reps from each high school every single time for the whole time, I feel as if it's fine to either keep that language or change it to not even having that portion of the two, or at minimum 2 high schools.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really see that being a problem in the future, because the whole point of them is to get opinions from different places. But, yeah, if it's taken out or not, I don't think it really is gonna affect it all too much, but if it would get changed to 3, it could be backing yourself into a corner a little bit if there's a weak applicant pool one year.
I apologize that I did not seek your guys' input. I'm sorry. Always feel free to speak up. Do you guys have any comment about this procedure as well?
I mean, I really like the changes to the procedure. It kind of lays everything out a little more clearly, especially with adding the superintendent and student action council portion. I think that's really important to have in there. And along with having the separation with the responsibilities of the superintendent and the board of directors, I think is good, because the student reps aren't the same to the superintendent as they are the board of directors.
I enjoy the idea that if we are to act as liaison, we do not also have to provide a report at the same time. I mean, those reports are semi-interesting to provide, but I feel as if we had to provide the report and participate, it would be a hefty sum of work for how much we already have.
Thank you. Loved hearing your opinions. Superintendent Whitney, let's get to a hypothetical here. If we say we get into this, we only have, I mean, and I don't think this is going to be the case, but we only have people from 2 of the 3 comprehensive high schools, and suppose not anything from any of the smaller high schools. So we can move forward in that. So we haven't backed ourselves into a corner. To me, that's not an acceptable solution. If we did put 3 on there and said that it has to be at least 3, would that move us to try to go for another round of interviews so that we could get at least 3?
Like I said, Amy, I have no preference. It's you as a full board need to direct me what you want me to do with that language.
No, I just want to know if in that situation, if we had at least 3, would that make us have to go out for more?
I mean, if we're going to do hypothetically, yes. In 9 years, we've not had that happen.
No, we haven't. No, we have not.
Our high school principals take very seriously their responsibility to recruit and put up applicants for the role, so
Yes, we do, and currently we do, and I don't know what it will be like in the future, but that might help it to stay that way.
I don't think there's anything that would stop us from doing that anyway, even with the current language.
Yeah, I feel as if it wouldn't prevent you if you wanted to seek for more applicants and more diversity. You could still do those interviews. If not, you could not do the interviews. I feel as if the current language itself does not change the fact that if you want more diversity, you can go and seek that diversity.
Is there any additional feedback on the procedure? Okay. I am ready to move on if your board is.
Yep.
Vice
Question,
President.
this will be on the March 11th.
Correct. Both the policy and procedure will be on the consent agenda, or you don't formally approve procedure, so the policy will be on the consent agenda at our next meeting. And I have one more policy for you.
Continue.
Okay. So the last policy I have before you is changes to the superintendent evaluation policy. You had a robust conversation, or you heard a robust dialogue from outside third-party consultant during the study session. To be honest, I don't know how what he said changes policy 1630. So what you see here is Dr. Alsbury's recommendations for changes to the evaluation policy for the superintendent. So currently, the evaluation policy is aligned with the old superintendent evaluation, and we're using a new model. So this policy needs to be modified to allow usage of the model you're using and to be in alignment with your own policies. So all of the changes that are represented on this policy in red are those that were made by Dr. Alsbury. He did indicate he did not think any of these changes were in conflict with the potential timeline modifications you're seeking. I am not an expert in this policy, however, so I feel a little inadequate around giving you any direction around this superintendent evaluation because I'm learning it too, so I apologize in advance.
I've read through it. I feel like we should move forward. Could we possibly have to do another policy change? Maybe a slight one. I'm not worried about it, but I think this is critical that we get this policy on the books right now. So I would recommend moving through it.
Superintendent Whitney, just to confirm, the changes here align with the contract cycle for you?
Correct. Yeah, correct.
I have 2 questions. I probably should know the answer to these.
I'm not guaranteeing I will, but let's give it a try.
One is the board governor's handbook. I probably have that, but can you just describe it, or do you
It
know?
looks very similar to the packet you got from Dr. Alsbury, but Jenny can make sure that all board members have a copy of the handbook because it will need the new insertion of the superintendent evaluation procedures. So we'll make sure you get a revised copy, or we need to build out an electronic copy so that as they're modified, we're not having to reprint the handbook. So we'll make sure each board member has that.
That and the other one was the balanced governance standards and practices. I guess we should be knowing what that's referring to.
Those are all of the trainings that Dr. Alsbury has come and given you, are the standards and practices. Those spiral-bound notebooks that he's given you, all of that is the standards and practices.
No further questions?
Oh, I knew the answers to those.
Student board reps, do you have any comments?
No.
So, well, this will
They
also.
don't want to touch your contract with the 10 people.
Understood.
When
This
does
will
the-
also go back, go ahead.
Oh, no, I think you're going to answer my question.
Yeah, this will also come back on consent agenda at the next meeting, and I appreciate your comment, Board President, or Board Member Phillips, that, policies are easily changed, so if, as we get moving through, there's another modification you want to make based on what we learned during the study session, we can always bring this back. Dr. Alsbury was very generous with his time in helping Sarah modify it, and I know that if we had additional questions, he would do that again.
Are there any other comments from the board? Okay. I thank you, Superintendent Whitney.
My pleasure.
So that concludes our reports for this evening. I just wanted to ask if there are any comments from the audience on any of the 3 reports that we've had, the school safety and security report, any of the board policy that we've talked about, and also the procedure. Mr. Garrett, is there anyone online that would like to comment? Okay. Hearing none, we will move on to item number 13, which is future agenda items. And once again, Michelle, star of the evening.
Board President or Board Vice President Simmons, if with your permission, I'm going to stay here so I didn't have to run over there. So future agenda items for our next, I cannot believe it's already going to be March. Like, that just blows my mind. For our study session, we'll have our second opportunity to hear from schools under the umbrella of State of the School Reviews. There'll be a Superintendent Student Action Council report, a Board Progress Monitoring report. This one is focused on track for graduation, and we'll also be continuing our efforts around levy planning. Specifically, during that board report, we will be asking for direction, not formal action, but direction from you around your desire for us to plan for an election. So we will be looking for some pretty specific direction from you as a result of that particular report.
Any comments from the board? Student board reps? Okay. Thank you, Michelle. So moving on to item number 14 on the agenda, communications, and we will go to Director Norberg if he wants to begin.
I think I'll just pass today. Oh, I do want to thank the counselors, the school counselors. They provide a very important role for our schools, and we really appreciate them, and I just want to pass that on.
I'll pass.
Big congratulations to the Pasco High dance team or hip hop team for winning their championship recently. Great honor and congratulations.
I want to say congratulations to the dance team, and also recently there's been a lot of state stuff happening with all of the winter sports. I want to say congratulations to all of the wrestlers at state. Chihuahua placed third in 4A men's. 4A men's. And then I also want to say congratulations to all of the Pasco wrestlers that did very well at state for how much they've worked and how much they've put into the sport.
Just extend Director Kennedy's congratulations to our dance team. Always love watching our dance team. Whenever I'm watching them, I always get the chills every single time. And then also extend a thank you to our counselors as well. I know I've really utilized my counselor, and she's been of great help to me especially throughout this process of me trying to apply to colleges and financial aid and everything like that.
I just want to say I echo, of course, the comments that have been made by my fellow directors and also student board reps about the dance team and also the counselors. Very important. One thing I did want to say real quick is I really appreciate the time and effort that we've been putting into this superintendent evaluation. It's pretty critical. That sets kind of the standard for the district, and student outcomes are the most important thing. I mean, it pretty much drives everything that the board does, from the facilities management to everything we do. So I just appreciate that. I appreciate Dr. Alsbury and his hard work and dealing with us and the questions that we have. And also Superintendent Whitney, I also appreciate you helping us understand and being patient with us as we work through it. This is a big change and a big lift for us. So the other thing I wanted to say too was the public comments. I appreciate public comments on the student board evaluation too, and I apologize we weren't able to get to those this evening, and just would ask that if there are any comments that you direct them to the district or to Superintendent Whitney, and we can get those to the board. Board President Brown, do you have any comments or communications this evening?
I do. I'll echo the congratulations to Pasco High dance team, and also congratulations to the Pasco players at Pasco High who completed their first 3 performances of Zombie Prom. I attended all 3 because I'm a proud mom. And I was supposed to attend the State of the Schools at Pasco yesterday, but I was not able to for the same reason that I'm not there tonight. I'm just not feeling well. So hopefully be able to attend more State of the Schools in the future. But those are all the comments that I have for this evening.
Okay.
I'd just also like to amplify my appreciation for our school counselors and by extension, my gratitude to our community for funding school counselors. The state funding formula provides for some school counselors, but not all the school counselors we need to administer a high-quality student mental health and advisory program for our comprehensive, school guidance program. And so we appreciate our community's willingness to support the additional enhanced funding through the levy. So our counselors do extraordinary work every day, in helping students with academic planning, supporting through trauma, grief, loss, helping connect with mental health issue or with outside counselors around mental health issues, doing that for students, but they're also present for the adults in the building. And so they're just a tremendous asset to this organization, to our staff and students, and they're a tremendous gift from this community. So I want to, while we celebrate them today, we appreciate them every day. And it is an honor to be able to just amplify our gratitude for them during school counselor appreciation. We also recently had school bus driver appreciation. So if you see a bus driver, make sure they know they're appreciated. That is an extraordinarily difficult job. I've done almost every job in the organization and absolutely know I could never be a bus driver. If you think I can't see over that monitor, you should see me sit in a school bus. But what they do every day in terms of like multitasking, knowing where kids leave, knowing the special needs are, dealing with traffic, dealing with, all of the things that happen, it's just absolutely incredible. And we transport over 10,000 students twice a day on, 80 buses. And so if you can imagine the logistics that takes, and they do it safely every single day, building relationships with kids. Bus drivers know their kids, love their kids, and I think when you talk to students, a lot of times some of their favorite people in their life trajectory in our district, they'll talk about their bus drivers. So just thank you to our bus drivers as well. I also wanted to let the board know on March 5th is the 5th session in our Pasco School District Ambassadors program. This time the focus will be social emotional learning and employee services. It will be at New Horizons High School on March 5th at 6 o'clock, so from 6 to 7:30. Thank you.
Okay. Well, that adjourns our meeting for this evening. I thank those in the audience that have been here and stuck with us. That concludes our regular meeting, and we will now recess into executive session under 4230.110(1G), performance of a public school employee, and we are expected it to take
Approximately 20 minutes, and we'll be requesting no action.
Okay.
Nailed it, Steve. Good job.
I was sweating.
You did great. Look, I had to draw. To understand the timing.
I really